Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, the Nunu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Lynn Nesbitt. I'm chairing the panel today. Joining me on the panel via Zoom are Richard Whitbread and Bill Moretsky. The secretary to our board today is Stephen Lunn, and our assessors are Stephen Lobenstein and Corinne DeRockany. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. And we will be hearing items 1, 2, 7, 8, 10, and 11 on our docket today. Mr. Lunn, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Stephen Lobenstein.
You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Madame Assessor, please state your full name.
Corinne DeRockany.
You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Story, please state your full name.
My name is Jared Story.
You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll begin our agenda today on item number 1961 Sherwin Road. Mr. Lobenstein, when you're ready, please.
Sure. The roll number is 07010242500961 Sherwin Road. The assessed value is $7,685,000. I do have a verbal recommendation for $7,230,000. That's $7,230,000.
Okay, and before we continue, can I ask what the basis of the verbal recommendation is?
Sure, it'd be an adjustment on the cap rate to 6.75% due to the size and mostly due to the size of the building and of course the age as well.
Just 6.75, you said? Okay. Mr. Story, what say you to that?
Yes, Madam Chair, we are in agreement with the quantum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moretsky or Mr. Whitbread, do either of you have any questions regarding the recommendation?
I don't.
No questions.
Thank you very much. Okay. We will move on then to item number 2 on our agenda, 1151 Sherwin Road. Mr. Lobenstein.
Sure. The roll number is 07-010-735-000-1151 Sherwin Road. The assessed value is $5,903,000. I do have a verbal recommendation for $5,164,000. That's $5,164,000.
Okay, and may I ask what the basis of that recommendation is?
Yes, in talking to Jarrett, he pointed out that our square footage for the leasable area was not correct, so we reduced it to 59,900 square feet. And I also adjusted the rent to $6.25 square foot.
And rent
And
to
these
six.
are my workups.
Yep.
Jarrett may have worked his number up
Yep.
differently. So
That's fine. Mr. Story, what do you say to the recommendation in front of you?
We agree with the recommendation on the basis of quantum, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so that's 5,164,000. Mr. Whitbread or Mr. Moretsky, any questions on the recommendation?
Yeah, I just want the applicant to repeat what he said. You agree based on what?
Oh, on the quantum. So we do sometimes come to these values using different parameters, but ultimately in our discussions, we're happy with the resulting value. We're comfortable with 5,164,000.
Okay,
No further questions.
thank you.
I do have one, if you don't mind. Just to
Yeah,
clarify.
please go ahead.
And if I'm out of line, just let me know, please, Jared. Can you explain to me the assessment theory that would accept an adjustment to vacancy decrease to realize a cap increase? That was your suggestion in your brief. And I puzzled over this one when I was going through the brief. Do you mind commenting on that, Jared?
Oh, I'm sorry. The theory of
You had suggested that if you drop the vacancy,
I see. Yes,
you should realize an increase in cap.
Yes, and this is now this is not in all instances, but this property has experienced what we'll call chronic vacancy over the years. Mm-hmm. So it has had very, very high vacancy, north of 40%, I believe. Mm-hmm. So we could capture that risk in different ways. We could say, well, the vacancy will likely be chronic in perpetuity, or we can use a market vacancy, in this case 4%, and recognize the risk profile to a prudent purchaser in the cap rate. So it would be, we likely wouldn't, I suppose in some extreme circumstance you might adjust both, but in order not to double count, we would recognize that risk should be captured in one of those inputs and not likely both unless there was some extremely good reason to. So
and that thinking led me to my second question, which then said, well, you can take a chronic vacancy rate of 25%. I guess you could take more than 25%, couldn't you? But the standard seems to be 25%.
I think that 25% standard is more of a top end of what the assessment department typically allows, but sure, and somebody could adjust that differently. But for the purpose of the Board of Revision, yeah, I don't see vacancies above 25%. And in that case, again, Mr. Whitbread, that would be long-term chronic vacancy that may even be incurable. So 25%, of course, would be very high if we're considering the remaining life of the useful asset. So I think you're correct. Yeah.
And that would lead to my last question, which was, then what would you consider a chronic? We have a 5-year vacancy here since 2018. Is that not a chronic, or is it longer than that?
Well, I've looked back at least to 18. I'd be speculating. I think that there has been vacancy that went before this. This is not. So we picked up this file in 20. So I looked back to 18. I don't have a 5 or 10 year history with this property on our files. But I think in order to qualify for what we'll call long-term chronic vacancy, you'll typically something, at least from an assessment department perspective, I think it's, and Mr. Lovenstein can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's vacancy north of 15% for 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, or some such thing. Yeah. Okay.
Listen, thank you for your patience. It's a teaching moment for me, learning moment for me, and maybe other people too. So I appreciate that.
Oh, quite welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will move to item number 7 on our docket now, 1680 Dublin Avenue. And Mr. Story, I note that you have 3 points of appeal on this property, classification, liability, and value.
Yes, Madam Chair, we looked into a couple of the tenants here too. For example, Heartbeat does, they do teach CPR courses, but they are not indeed a registered charity or some such thing. So we check those off out of an abundance of caution, but we are suggesting today that we will simply confirm the class code and liability and focus our comments on value only.
Thank you very much, Mr. Story. Okay, Mr. Rockany, I see that you are leading this one. So when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is file number 22-3136, roll number 0701066900. Address is 1680 Dublin Avenue. We're defending the assessed value of $5,021,000 for the 2023 roll year based on the reference date of April 1st, 2021. It consists of 3 buildings with 1 story, built in 1988. The wall height ranges from 20 to 23 feet. The land area is 108,267 square feet. The leasable area is 38,672 square feet. And the land to plan area is 2.82. On our next page, there's the sale of the subject sale history in the subject sale history of August 12th, 2020, in the amount of $4,200,000. Please note that the purchaser and vendor are not related. The vendor is Sun Mortgage Corporation, and the purchaser is LS Properties. Below are the actual net rent per square foot for the subject property leases, which includes 10 premises with unit sizes range from 1,761 to 10,076 square feet. And their net rent range from $5 to $9.50 per square foot. On our following page contains a map showing its location just off of Dublin Avenue in the St. James Industrial Area in between Route 90 and Border Street. Page 4 and 5 shows aerial views of the subject's location. On page 4, you can see there's 3 ways to enter the property. And on page 5, with the 3 buildings, 1680 has the rear loading, and 1686 the front loading. And for 1692, as you can see, there's angle rear loading. Page 6 is our income workup. The 10 premises are shown with a total of 38,672 square feet leasable area, with the average rent being $8.93 per square foot. This gives us our total potential gross income of $345,522. We've reduced that by a vacancy loss of 7%, plus expenses at 3%, with a shortfall at $3.85 per square foot. This gives us a net operating income of $301,273, in which we've capitalized that at 6%. And that generates our capitalized value of $5,021,217, with our new final value of $5,021,000. The next page is we've provided 7 rent comparables with a lease start in 2018 or 2019. Area range from 1,800 to just over 10,000 square feet. Wall height range from 17 to 21 feet. year built 1967 to 1990, and a net rent range of $7.25 per square foot to $8.95 per square foot. All of these are actual net rents from the market, which is what our model is based off of. On page 9 is our capitalization rate. And in our industrial portion, the city uses a range of 5.55 at the 20th percentile to 7.45 at the 80th percentile. The subject's cap rate of 6 falls between this range and is further supported by the outside sources. On page 11 to 27 is the income and expense questionnaire provided by the owner. Advised COVID-19 has not impacted to the operation of the property. Page 17 and 24 to 27 is the income statement they've provided to us. And based on this evidence, we ask that the assessed value of $5,021,000 be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions for the assessor?
I do. I just have a few questions. Okay, and thank you for your presentation. So the on page 2, we can agree that that sale was a market transaction between unrelated parties, and that's at 4.2 million, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and just below that, the property leases that were in place at the time of acquisition, these are the actual leases, and these are the contract rents that were being purchased by the purchaser. Is that a fair comment? Okay, and to your knowledge, has anyone from the department visited this property?
Not that I know of. Not recently.
Okay. In reviewing the rent roll, can we agree that this is a somewhat unique property in that it has a distillery, it has a couple units that are fully office finished, it has a specialty pet store, and then it's got an older building at the back where they're doing automotive coatings. So it has a variety of uses, correct? Okay, that's great. So, and then the couldn't help but notice, but the workup that we have here on page 6 for those rents, those are all much higher than what's actually being achieved at the reference date, and certainly the rents that were being purchased by the purchaser, correct?
Not all of them, but some of them.
Okay, but these, well, okay, the highest, okay, I see what you're saying. The highest rent that we have in here is at $950 in 2 premises, and those are the ones that are 90% office. But the majority of the rents, can we agree, were a fair bit lower than what the model is suggesting, based on the different premises that you have listed here. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And the workup is model derived, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then just one last question. I noticed here on page 13, when we see the primary use, we don't typically see that many different use codes in the rent roll. So it is kind of an interesting property in that regard. But okay, on page 17, we can agree that the owner is indeed, he has a full section here on non-recoverable expenses that he's reporting. Is that fair to say? Okay. And I'm sure those are my questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Mr. Moretsky, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Is this building fully rented out?
At the time, yes.
Sorry?
On record, currently it's all rented out.
On page 17, the client's income statement, the net income for 2020 is $90,897. Is that, do I read that correctly? That's what the reported net income is on this property?
That's correct.
So in your workup, you have net operating income of $301,273. So that's 3 times the actual number that's being reported right now. Explain that that wide a discrepancy.
Okay, I'll step in and answer that question. So this is just a snapshot of 1 year, this income statement. So although there could be extra expenses this year, and there were in past years, you can see they have a lot of non-recoverables, which is not necessarily normal for a property, an industrial property. So at times, yes, the incomes could be lower, and there's other times when it has been higher in the past. So, but yes, for the reference here, for the mailer that we're using at this time, yes, it is lower than what we are showing in our model.
Well, it's 70% lower, correct? Somewhere
That's
around
correct. Yeah, but again, our model, we're looking at net rents that are based off the market. So although this is rented out, we did note that it was noted that some of their rents are lower than the market, it seems.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Maretsky. Mr. Whitbread?
Yes, I'm looking at your photos on page 4 and 5 and looking at the nature of the businesses that are conducted in the buildings. Do you know if semi-trailers or larger trucks need to access these buildings to load or unload material?
Yeah, so you can see the buildings that the rear of the buildings, the 2 side buildings, both have overhead doors with angled loading, so trucks can back in and out. The building at the rear has front loading for trucks to back in and out. So it is, although the land to building ratio is low, it is possible for trucks to get in and out. Although, yes, I would agree it would be far more difficult for a large trailer, like a 40-foot trailer, to get in and out. Plenty of small trucks to get in and out.
So you're referencing the angled loading in building number 1692. Is that what I'm
yeah, 1692 and 1680 on the other side would have angled loading as well.
Oh yes, I see that too. Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Okay, I have a question on the subject leases versus the model. And could you go through, I don't know which way you want to proceed, through the subject leases and tell me how much the model is showing for that particular premise, if you can do that, or backwards go through the model and tell me which subject lease it pertains to. I see that a couple of them, the first one with leased area of 5169 has a subject lease of 950, and your model gives it 884. So it's slightly lower. The one that's around 10,000 square feet, your subject lease shows $5, but your model gives it $868. So I'm just wondering, did you look at the leases closely and compare against the model to see how your model was performing against the leases? Can we go through it quickly and just tell me on the premises?
So what we're looking at, like we've talked about before, our model is based off the market. So although these are leases signed in this building, our model probably would have used some of these leases as well, but it would have looked around the market within the St. James area to build for this property. So, so in terms of, I'm not sure exactly which ones correlate here, but you can see there are some dated leases in here in 2015, 2016. You have a few that are signed in 2012.
Right.
So
they're older.
They're older leases. So they would be lower than what our model is showing, because our model is trying to use more current leases.
Okay, I understand that. But do you look at the model then to see if it's reasonable compared to the leases that are in place?
Yes,
we know that the applicants often bring actuals, so I mean it's got some bearing on the numbers. So I'm just trying to understand it a little bit.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's fine. And I understand what you're asking. So we do review our properties. We'll look at the assessed values from last cycle to this cycle to see how they've increased or decreased. And then we will review the rent rolls as well. In this case, I can't tell you exactly when it was reviewed and who reviewed it, but they felt that the value was fair, especially in comparison to the sale. There's a $4.2 million sale in 2020. And so we're looking at a value for 2023 and we're at 5 million. So, I mean, I think a fairly fair increase.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Story.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just before we flip to my brief, can we just neglected to ask this, I put it in small print here, but on page 25 of the assessor's brief, and this will be germane to our discussions on rents based on your question that you just asked. If you look at the final input there, it's the vacant unit. I just want to show you something where it says expected rent. You can see that the owner has listed that they're expecting to generate $6.32 for that space. So, and you can see also some of these leases are a bit older. That's sure. The ACS is certainly from 2015, but many of these have steps that are quite relevant to the reference date, and they would have been known to the purchaser when he was buying the property. So I just want to make sure we're very clear that we're not just simply using very old leases. We're using leases that stepped up, and they were contract rents that were relevant to the purchaser.
Do you have a question for the assessor?
No. This is part of my presentation. I just want to.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So again, we've looked at this property. We looked at that sale. I am going to make an adjustment. I of course, Mr. Lobenstein and I have gone through this whole docket in great detail, quite frankly, and I did have the opportunity to look through this a little more closely yesterday. Now, just so we're very clear, that sale is indeed a market transaction. It is something of a unique property. Two of the units are effectively offices, office property. They're 90% or so office finish, and they are commanding $9.50. The majority of the other leases in this property are somewhere between $7 and $7.50. And that's fair, and that's what was being purchased. Now, the ACS coatings lease is low. It's on the low end. It's at $5, but it is for the warehouse that is lower quality at the back of this property. So I have made an adjustment to that lease for the purpose of our exercise today. We've established that we're on Dublin. We have a low land to building at 2.8 to 1, and we have established that we have loading that would be, it would not be ideal. It would not be able to accommodate, let's say, the larger trailers, and that would be a negative influence. It is angled loading. Again, we have a variety of different tenants in this property that makes it quite atypical. Ultimately, we're not disputing the shortfall. We are using our non-recoverables. I have mentioned that the owner does record non-recoverables. It is clearly a concern that they're reporting every year. I have a number of photos here. We have inspected this property since our client acquired it in late 2020. So you can see the interior of the Teamster space. That's indeed an office.
What
unit.
page? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's 28. Sorry for
okay.
Jumping around
yeah,
here.
Thanks.
27 will show you some exteriors from the site. I took those photos myself. The interiors start on page 28. That's the office space occupied by Teamsters. Again, there's a variety of uses here. You can see the distillery starting on page 37. But ultimately, Madam Chair, what I've done here is I've taken the actual rents in place. I believe that they do correspond with the market for this specific property, and they are the rents that were being purchased on acquisition. But the adjustment that I have made is the coatings rent at $5 maybe a touch low, and when the purchaser acquired the property, he may have considered that there would be some room for appreciation on that very low rent. So I've adjusted it up to $7.50, which is which is in line with, what we'll call the higher rents that are the non-office rents in the property at the reference date. So that gives us a new blended rent of $783, which I've rounded to $785. That makes sense. So that gives us a potential net market income of $303,575. Now, Mr. Whitbread, you'd asked a question about vacancy. Now, in this property, we don't have a history of vacancy. We will typically see vacancy on the low end at about 3%, on the higher end of what we call normal at 4%. So I've used 3% here to reflect that we do not indeed have a history of vacancy. Shortfall is fine. We do continue to apply our 5% for non-recoverables. You've been provided with our study, and I know at this stage of the cycle, you've all heard it many, many times. And then we apply 2% for structural. So that gives us a new NOI of $269,389. And with consideration to the age, some of those loading issues, a cap rate of 6.5% makes sense in this instance. So ultimately, that leads us to an indicated market value of $4,144,440. Again, we round that to $4,144,000, and that is within, I've calculated as 1.3% of the, it's within 1.3% of the actual purchase price. So I think that makes sense. I think it's fair to look at that actual market transaction and not recognize that this is what the property sold for, and there may be some other considerations or assumptions there, but ultimately we have considered it. That gives us a rate of $107 per foot. It is in line with the sale, so we are requesting today that the value not exceed $4,144,000, and again, that's with a slight adjustment to our NOI and with some consideration to the sale that's quite relevant to the reference period. And I think I'll leave my presentation there, and I'm open to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Story. Mr. Rockney, do you have any questions?
I just have one or two questions.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Lobenstein. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Just my first question is, so you mentioned that these were the contract rents that were in place when they purchased the building.
That's correct. Yeah.
So that would be the net operating income that he purchased the building on.
That would be the potential net market income.
So if you use that net market income, what cap rate do you get when it's applied to the sale of the property?
Well, I haven't calculated the cap rate for this property. You'd have to make assumptions about the vacancy and the expenses and some other considerations there. So I haven't calculated the cap rate, but ultimately we do know that these are the rents in place and that he paid $4.2 million for it.
Okay,
so
those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Whitbread?
I have none, thank you.
Mr. Moretsky?
I have none, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Story, you indicated you used a 3% vacancy. Is that a reduction from your workup? I see on your workup you've used a 7% vacancy.
Yes, it is. So yeah, in this area, the city and Altus, we agree 7% is that's supported by brokers in this area. We have a range of vacancies throughout the city. We did agree ultimately at the beginning of this process at 7%. But again, we've now been able to perform a site-specific analysis. We would typically use 4% as a standard vacancy for industrial, and that would include some consideration for collection loss on top of physical vacancy. But 3% would be on the very low end. We don't have vacancy here. And as I suggested, Madam Chair, if we have lower rents, then we would expect the property to be quite competitive and not, again, we want to be very fair and not double count, so to speak. So if we have lower rents, the model is clearly showing us that these rents are on the lower side. So if the property is competitive in that regard, then vacancy should likely be a touch lower. So that is the justification for that adjustment.
Okay, and I have a question. You talked a little bit about the land to plan and the fact that a 40-foot trailer wouldn't be able to come into this property. Is it designed to have that kind? Like, It's just the
Right.
nature of the property. Would it be designed for that
Nope.
anyway? Like,
No,
it's
you're-
not going to be attractive to those buyers, right?
Precisely. It will be attractive to purchasers who do not require, the 53-foot trailers coming in. So
Right.
you're quite right. Yep.
So the fact that it can't accommodate 40-foot trailers isn't really a negative given the type of property it is.
Well, certainly I appreciate that comment. That is true. But we can also agree that when we have a low land to plan, our potential for expansion in the future is hindered. So we consider two factors when we look at land to plan, and it is the turning radials for larger trucks, but we also consider future expansion. So at this stage, once we're below 3-1, we don't have we don't really have anywhere to go in terms of expansion. So I appreciate your comment, but I would suggest that both of those factors would be a consideration.
It's sort of been expanded to its maximum potential right now then.
Precisely.
Like any expansion has taken place, right?
That's right. Yeah. Exactly.
Or has it? Was it all constructed at once?
I think it was all constructed in.
Oh, I have a 1911 on your assessment.
Oh,
summary.
yeah. So
Is
that's
that
first.
right?
That's that first building at the very back. Yeah, it's
Okay.
that's where they're doing coatings. I think the
Oh.
city has it as 1686. I think they have a good breakdown of where you can see that's the building at the very back of the property.
Okay.
It is not the same quality as the two sort of sister flex properties at the front, but that's if it's 1911, then that's that's fine. It's clearly been maintained and it's rentable and it's generating rent. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the city has 1988 on this property. Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense as a whole. And you can see the interior. It's maintained. It's generating rent. Again, you have a specialty pet store. There's a fellow who sells lizards in there, and there's a buckskin guy, and then there's the Teamsters are in there. So there's all kinds of uses for this property. It's very it is atypical, but the interiors are in good shape. So no issue with condition there.
Okay. And even with the adjustments you've made to a value of $4,144,000, that's still below the sale price in August 20. Do you see that there's been by a small amount for sure?
Yeah.
But do you see that there's been no value increase over that time?
Well, that would be if we're looking between August of 2020 and April 21, I guess, I don't have any study to support this, but I would suggest that the world was sort of in an odd place at that time. So I feel pretty comfortable that if we're within, if our margin of error is 1.3%, I feel pretty good about that. But it's a good question. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Story. Mr. Rockany or Mr. Lobenstein, is there a desire for summation?
Summation.
Mr. Story?
No, I think we're good. I think we've sort of said it all about this property. I think that we have been quite fair in recognizing that sale price, and I think our revised value that is again within a couple percentage points of the purchase price is fair, and we do request that you adjust the value to $4,144,000. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Story. All right, we'll move to item number 8 on our docket, 961 Powell Avenue. Mr. Lobenstein, I see you're in the chair now, so when you're ready, you can begin.
The roll number is 07011061000961 Powell Avenue. The assessed value is $4,984,000. I do have a verbal recommendation for $4,713,000. That's $4,713,000.
And can I ask you?
Sorry, it would be based off $7 a square foot.
And that's the only adjustment?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Story, the recommendation is for $4,713,000. What is your response to that?
We are in agreement with the resulting value, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moretsky or Mr. Whitbread, do either of you have any questions about the verbal recommendation?
I have none.
Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on. Item number 10 on our agenda, which is 999 King Edward. And before we begin, Mr. Story, I note that you have 3 points of appeal on this property: liability, classification, and value.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. We looked into one of the tenants to determine whether or not they would qualify, and we are electing at this stage to simply confirm the class code and liability request and speak to value. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Lobenstein, then when you're ready.
Sure. So for 999 King Edward Street, the roll number is 07011102100. We have a assessed value of $4,698,000. I do have a verbal recommendation for $4,370,000. That's with a slight increase to the cap rate to 6.15% on the flex warehouse portion of the property. This is 2 income streams. It has a restaurant portion and a flex warehouse portion.
Okay, so just on the flex warehouse only, it's a 6.15
Right.
from 6.05, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and that value again was $4,370,000.
Correct.
Mr. Story?
Yes, we agree with the resulting final value, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moratsky or Mr. Whitbread, any questions on the recommendation?
No.
Just confirming then the restaurant would stay at 918,000.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Well, and just we do calculate these values differently, Mr. Whitbread, but I guess ultimately for the sake of the owner, the final value is not bifurcated into 2 streams. It's the final value is simply one bottom line number. So we do get there differently, but we agree with the value. Just wanted to point that out for the record. Thank you.
Right. I think Mr. Whitbread, you were just commenting on the assessor's values, correct?
That is correct.
Right. Okay. Okay, so we will then move on to item number 11 on our agenda. Let me just, sorry, I have so many documents open. Mr. Assessor, when you're ready, please.
Sure. The roll number is 14098696000 2061 Brookside Boulevard. Sorry, I actually don't have, just give me one moment here for my document. That's already all right. We have this value of $4,738,000. And I believe we spoke about this one before. And Mr. Story is just going to be looking for confirmation at the moment due to a pending supplementary that's coming out for an addition.
Mr. Story, can you
Yes.
comment, please?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Lobenstein. That is quite correct. There's a supplementary that'll be issued, which will supplant this appeal. So we will simply wait for that supplementary. And Madam Chair, I'll just ask that this file be confirmed for our purposes today.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Mr. Whitbread or Mr. Moratsky, any comment?
I have none.
Questions? Thank you, and neither do I. All right, well, that concludes all items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
Everyone, appreciate it.
Have a
Nice
good
weekend.
weekend.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you.